That mushroom mycelium is determining growth patterns. It is releasing a vast array of antioxidants and other immune supporting compounds to protect itself, again, in this milieu of other microorganisms that it's interacting with in the soil systems. It is going and finding food for the organism, and very similar to animals, fungal organisms digest their food using digestive enzymes. These mushrooms do so much more than just support respiratory health.
Right.
In fact, when we look at structure function processes in the body, these three mushrooms particularly check off many of the boxes. One of the things that we know that they do, in fact, we host a webinar for our store staff and medical professionals that's all on athletic performance and post-exercise recovery using mushrooms and herbs. And reishi, chaga, and cordyceps all have a capacity to support post-exercise recovery processes.
Welcome, everybody, to episode number 126. I'm your host, Dr. Dayan at the Healthy Habit Medical Center. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see our front desk behind us right here, located nice and conveniently right inside Healthy Habit Health Food, 6029 North 7th Street, right on the corner of Bethany Home Road. And here today on episode 126, you might remember this guest, folks, from episode number 77. That was released November 9th, 2023. We're talking with Richard Cividanes here today, representing Host Defense Mushrooms. I'm excited to check in. It's been over 7 months, well, about 6 months since we talked with this guest. Richard Cividanes has over 25 years involvement with the natural products industry. His experience includes working as a staff member in health food stores and natural food co-ops in New York and Washington State. Richard is part of the family who founded Topical BioMedics and developed the award-winning homeopathic topical brand, Topricin. I hope I'm saying that right, Richard. He was our brand manager and educator for 15 years, 15 years, where he regularly traveled the country, educating thousands of retail staff and medical professionals on the benefits of homeopathic Topricin. So I'm excited, and we're talking fungi perfecti today, host defense mushrooms. Welcome back, Richard.
Thank you, doctor. It's nice to be here with you again.
Well, I'm excited to check in here, my friend. What's been going on your end before we dive into specific topics today since we last spoke? How's it been going at Host Defense Mushrooms?
Oh, Dan, thanks for the opportunity. It's been going wonderfully in the last number of months. We've gotten some really excellent movement occurring in regards to a double-blind placebo human study that two of our mushrooms, Agarikon and turkey tail, were involved in. And that study has not been published yet, but it was run out of one of the research laboratories at UCSD in San Diego, and just absolutely phenomenal results in regards to helping to support not only the innate immune system, but also some really intriguing and excellent adaptive immune system results being reported from the researchers from that. So that's been an exciting process, and we're all here just digging in. It's springtime, so a lot of folks have been enjoying their forays out into the different areas where they live, gathering mushrooms for either their own personal enjoyment or collections for the company. And that one mushroom I mentioned, the Agarikon, which hopefully we'll have an opportunity to speak a little bit about today, that's been a real focus for Paul Stamets. That's the gentleman who's the owner of Fungi Perfecti. It's been a focus of his for many, many decades, and he has spent in a huge amount of his own personal hours, personal capital, finding this very, very rare species in the old growth forests. And over the last number of decades, we've had an opportunity to collect 110 different sample species from the environment. We're not taking them out of the environment, we're just taking cultures from them. And we're doing processes for just doing genetic sequencing, looking for what we would call super strains of the organism. And so that's really exciting that we've finally hit the benchmark of 100, which Paul was shooting for a very long time, and we shot over that to 110. So that's pretty great.
That's incredible. That's a great update from Host Defense Mushrooms there. And so is the Royal Agarikon in the Stamets 7, or do we have a standalone, or is it in multiple formulas there at Host Defense, since that was a good segue into Royal Agarikon?
Yeah, it is in a few of our in our products. It is not in Stamets 7. It's in standalone capsules as Agarikon. It is also one of the 5 mushrooms that's found in our MycoShield throat sprays. It is also one of the 17 mushrooms that's in our MyCommunity formula. That's our comprehensive immune support formula. And it's also in our newer MycoBotanicals immune powder. So it's one of the 5 mushroom species that is in that formula as well. And this is it's a very rare old growth forest mushroom. It only grows on old growth trees. It's found on very few places around the world, mostly in the Pacific Northwest, coastal areas. And it has been known by the native nations people in that area, as well as in certain areas of Europe, for generations. It was written about in Dioscorides' first Materia Medica back in, I believe, 65 AD. He called it the elixir of long life. And while there's not that much research on Agarikon, the research that does exist on this species is incredibly impressive. There's in vitro studies that have isolated some really considerable secondary metabolites that can support our health. There is a picture of Paul with one of the Agarikons. You can see how it grows in this beehive-shaped formation. It is the longest growing mushroom that we are aware of. It can grow up to 100 years. And where it lives in these very dank, damp environs of the old growth forest, it's able to sustain its health and wellness over this long arc of time. That's one of the things that we're really interested in, is how it's able to support its immune health for this very, very extended period of time in an environment that is full of a milieu of other pathogenic fungal organisms and bacterial organisms that it is obviously interacting with on a regular basis. And some of the preliminary research data on this species suggests that there's some pretty significant support associated with both immune and respiratory health. The immune supporting qualities, that's even one of the things that Dioscorides and the Haida and Pliket peoples of the Pacific Northwest were using it for back prior, obviously, to modern scientific studies. But the immune supporting qualities have been partially determined by this really unique combination of bioactive compounds found in this mushroom. There's a range of triterpenes and polysaccharides, organic acids, coumarins, not to be confused with the Coumadin medication. But these compounds that are even found in the mycelium of Agarikon have been particularly interesting in the scientific realm. So it's a really exciting area of focused research for our research team. We consider this mushroom to be the mascot of Fungi Perfecti, and it's really been a deep focus for Paul and the work that he's been doing over the last number of decades.
Amazing. Thank you, Richard. Can you hear me well?
Absolutely.
Perfect. Thanks for that breakdown on Agarikon. Again, it has a standalone, just like you're seeing here on the screen. If you just head over to hostdefense.com and just type in Agarikon there at their search bar. But it's also in several of their mycobotanical line, correct?
It's in the MycoBotanicals immune powder. It's in our MycoShield immune throat sprays, and it's also found in the MyCommunity comprehensive immune support formula. Yeah.
Understood. Powered by mushroom mycelium, folks. At Host Defense, they use mushroom mycelium in all of their products. Why? Because it works. Let's give a little recap if someone hasn't heard from you since episode 77, or if the first time hearing from you, Richard. What's the mycelium? Why is that being used in all the products? What is this exactly?
Yeah, sure. It's a great question, Doctor. And, a lot of people misidentify the mushroom mycelium as the root of the mushroom. And that really kind of does a disservice to the organism itself. The mushroom mycelium is the longest living aspect of the organisms that we refer to in a common tongue as mushrooms. Mushroom mycelium in the ecosystems can exist for many, many years, hundreds to even thousands of years in its ecosystems. And it is the most metabolically and enzymatically active part of the mushroom's life cycle. That mushroom mycelium is determining growth patterns. It is releasing a vast array of antioxidants and other immune supporting compounds to protect itself, again, in this milieu of other microorganisms that it's interacting with in the soil systems. It is going and finding food for the organism, and very similar to animals, fungal organisms digest their food using digestive enzymes. So instead of going and finding food and then taking that food and putting it into itself, mycelium has this really unique characteristic where it finds food and then it grows into its food and it
Wow.
releases digestive enzymes, and then it assimilates those nutrients in through its cell walls. All of this is occurring in an organism when it's in its mycelial stage that is only a single cell wall thick in any of the areas within the network. And then when the mycelium decides it is time to begin the reproductive process for that species, the mycelium itself begins to build fruit bodies through this very complex laminating process where it starts laminating mycelial cells together to build the fruit body, which we
Wow.
can think of as the reproductive organ of the organism. In that fruit body, there are spore germination cells and spore ejection cells that release the spores into the environment. And when properly combined mating types of spores find one another, they begin producing what's called hyphal cells. When properly combined hyphal cells find and combine, they start growing more mycelium. So at post defense, all of our products contain mushroom mycelium, as well as the fermented substrate that the mycelium ferments as it's growing through it. In many of our liquid extracts, you'll also find extractions of mushroom fruit bodies as well. So we do work as a company with both sides of the organism, but there's a lot of misunderstanding, and most of this is being driven by marketing that mycelium is in somehow a weaker
Right.
aspect of these organisms. And when you really start looking into the science research, we see that both the mushroom fruit bodies and the mushroom mycelium have some significant capacities to support immune health and other body systems at the same time for the human.
Great breakdown on the mycelium. We'll do a little snippet of that for a little show intro today. That was good. We need to know about that. Whereas the fruiting body's that final part to come out. If you think of the mushroom emoji on smartphones, it would be like the cap, right?
That's correct. And so even when we go into the wild, like let's just go back to Agarikon for a moment. When we find a healthy species of Agarikon on an old growth tree,
Yeah.
we do not want to take it out of the ecosystem.
Okay.
We want it to sustain there. And so one of our mycologists will go and they'll take a small tool that just takes a little tiny tissue sample out of the bottom of the fruit body. But we take that back to the laboratory, and when it's placed on a petri dish with agar, very soon mushroom mycelium begins to grow, because again it is those hyphal cells that are even building the fruit body that you see in the ecosystem. So it is again two sides of that same organism abiding at different aspects of its life cycle. And obviously we do have historical use of mycelial based fungal
Right.
organisms. Chaga is a perfect example. Chaga is a mushroom that is very often misidentified as a fruit body, but the
Yeah.
chaga that is even wild harvested it from nature is dense aged mushroom mycelium that is beginning to express out of the tree that the chaga has infected. And that is a mushroom that has been used for eons in human health supportive
Wow.
practices. So that's just one aspect of mycelium being used for a long time before we even recognize what it was in the more modern
Interesting.
scientific understanding.
And if you're following along on YouTube here, you can see Richard's turning a little red orange there. He's like powering up here. That's what happened. That's the effect of mushrooms, man.
I'm not sure
I
what
love
that's
it.
about
It looks
there.
great.
My camera.
It powers you up once we start talking about these
That's
mushrooms,
right.
like chaga. So let's talk stress decompress. This is from the mycobotanical line, Richard. The mycobotanicals, as the name suggests, you're combining the myco, the mushroom, with herbs, with botanicals, correct? That's a simple way to look at it. And this formula has 5 ingredients in it. Tell us about stress decompress.
Absolutely, yes. And so you're correct. It is combining mushrooms and herbs. Nothing new there, right? We've got traditional Chinese medicine and other more ancient
Right.
medical traditions that have combined these types of organisms for a very long time. And oftentimes you'll find you get a benefit by the kind of entourage kind of support that can occur from the vast amount of different compounds that are happening within the fungal organisms and the herbs themselves. So stress decompress is just kind of how it sounds. This is a formula that's designed for an individual who may be experiencing stress where their fight or flight response is becoming activated, and they find that they're getting really like wound up and like feeling kind of intense when you're in that traffic jam or whatever it might be. It is a non-sedating formula, so it's not going to make you feel sleepy or lethargic, so you can take it even earlier in the day. There's 2 mushrooms that we combine in there. There's lion's mane mushroom, which is great for helping to support brain and neurological health. and that goes a long way in helping to support our stress response. And then the other mushroom, reishi, is known in some circles as the mushroom of immortality. It is a mushroom that is considered to be a true adaptogenic substance. And adaptogens are natural substances that help our bodies assimilate more efficiently to stressors, internal stressors and external stressors. And so then those two mushrooms are combined with the herbs lemon balm, sometimes referred to as Melissa, and American skullcap. These are both nervine herbs that have an opportunity to calm our mental thought processes down and relax our body without being sedating. Um, for some people at very high servings, they can be slightly sedating, but that is at really high serving. So not a normal sedating type of herb, but one that can very much calm the nervous system down. And then also we've got ashwagandha, which is another herb that is considered to be a true adaptogenic herb. A lot of ashwagandha and reishi's impacts upon our body and upon what's known as our HPA axis, the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal gland
Yeah.
axis, are quite similar actually. And ashwagandha is an herb that comes from the Ayurvedic tradition, and even the Latin binomial of this herb. It's Withania somnifera. That somnifera comes from the Latin word somnus, which means sleep. Now, ashwagandha does
Oh,
not make you feel sleepy. It does not sedate you, but it has been found in modern day research to help support our sleep cycles. So there are three mushrooms in this formula: lion's mane, reishi, and then ashwagandha, three ingredients that have all been found in research to support sleep architecture. Oftentimes, when a person's fight or flight response is activated, especially if that's ongoing and they have ongoing stress occurring, sleep becomes really elusive. So there's an opportunity to help support that sleep architecture through the use of the product as well. If you are interested, I would suggest you take 2 capsules, which is the suggested serving of Stress Decompress, and then you can increase the amount of reishi and or lion's mane that you're using at the same time. Like for instance, if you're using our mushroom mycelium powders, you can safely use up to 4.5 grams of that powder. So you could take a
mm,
couple of grams of the lion's mane and the reishi and the Stress Decompress if you're looking for some more significant added support.
amazing. Perfect. Thanks for breaking that down. The stress decompress formula. We have a whole host defense section right here at Healthy Habit Health Foods. And you'll see Stammet 7 there and the whole lineup, the individual herbs there. If something's missing from the pack, we can special order for you. And our phone number is 602 252 6000. That's for Healthy Habit Health Foods. 602 252 6000. And we're talking with Richard Cividanes here today, folks. Episode number 126 on the Healthy Habit Podcast. And if you missed the last one with Richard, episode 77, I highly recommend you go check that one out. You can head over to our YouTube channel where we talked Richard's top mushroom currently at that time. That was in the winter. I want to get an update here for the summer, springtime here, Richard. Liver support. We talked about astragalus, mushroom hats, even making hats out of mushrooms. It was a good episode. So where are you at right now, Richard, as you head into the spring? A lot of people have allergies right now, seasonal allergies, as we head into the summer months. Do you like seasonal mushrooms? Do you rotate it like that? Or what are your thoughts on
I
that as the weather heats up?
Thank you very much. And yeah, I do rotate a bit over the year. Seasonal allergies definitely are happening. In fact, I don't know if you can hear me, but I'm a bit
A little
congested
bit.
here myself,
Yeah.
and I'm assuming it's an allergy, though I am not quite sure what's been happening the last few days. But I one of my most favorite products of ours that I use with a lot of consistency is our Breathe formula. That is a 3 mushroom formula. I love the 3 mushrooms that are in that formula. They are reishi, cordyceps, and chaga. They're in equal proportions. I am a proponent of our Breathe liquid extract. Personally, I find that it works more efficiently for me. I do struggle and have throughout my life. I'm in my 50s now. I've struggled with respiratory issues. Whenever something comes at me, my respiratory system is most significantly impacted. And that formula, obviously the name is Breathe, so it's going to help support more graceful breathing. All 3 of those mushrooms have research studies that show that they can support not only the cells that line the lungs of our that line our lungs. Cordyceps helps with allowing our lungs to draw more air into them, as well as allowing more oxygen to pass through the membrane in our lungs and into our body. So it improves oxygenation. As I mentioned with stress decompress, reishi is considered an adaptogenic mushroom, right? There's research that shows it helps to move us from sympathetic nervous system that you can think of simply as the fight, flight, freeze, or faint side of our autonomic nervous system, and into the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest mode. Cordyceps itself, a very energizing and revitalizing mushroom, is another one of the few mushroom species that is considered to be a true energetic adaptogen. So it too will help our bodies associate more efficiently with stress response. And so the combination of those two mushrooms in regards to respiratory health, I find are phenomenal. When it comes to the different seasons of the year as well, I like reishi and cordyceps during the spring and the summer months. There is research that shows that they can support a reduction in mast cell activation, and those are certain types of immune cells that can at times release highly engaged messenger molecules like prostaglandins and histamines.
Right.
And so there we have our breathe formula is in capsule and powder form, and I think that's wonderful to use as an ongoing day-to-day support. The liquid extract includes water and alcohol extractions of all three mushroom myceliums and their fermented rice substrates, as well as hot water and alcohol extracts of dried reishi fruit bodies. I find for me, I have a faster assimilation. Like when I'm
Right.
struggling with graceful breathing, usually within 10-15 minutes of a serving of a couple dropperfuls, I notice a marked change in my breathing engagement.
Fascinating. How important is it to have that organic certification? Not a lot of supplements have that USDA organic symbol on there, and
It
even the non-GMO mushroom. How key is that when you're taking a supplement to know that it's organic, especially mushrooms?
I agree. And another thing that I think is really important in regards to the fungal organisms is to ensure that they are, being grown here in the United States would be best.
Right.
We have an ability when we're growing sustainably grown mushrooms like we do at our farm in Western Washington. We control the entire process from beginning to end. We're able to test the water that we're using. We test the substrates that we're using prior to growth to ensure that they don't have any levels of contaminants that could be particularly troublesome for an individual. And then we do testing after batch testing after the products are created as well. So
Yeah.
we're able to control that mechanism right from the beginning to the end, since we're controlling all of the growing and then the production of the supplements as well.
Beautiful. And again, quick highlight here, breathe extract. This is the liquid version. I personally like liquids a lot. I mean, it mixes it up instead of just relying only on tablets and capsules all the time. And I feel like it's quicker uptake, as you kind of hinted at there a moment ago. You can go right under the tongue. You can even put it in a little bit of water, juice, and just take it straight up like that. 3 herbs here, mushrooms, chaga, reishi, and cordyceps, the big 3, all in that breathe formula. Maybe this can help with athletes, right? Or pre and post workout.
Absolutely. That's when I use it. This
Yeah.
morning, I went for a run before I started work, and I took it about 20-30 minutes before I hit the forest that I go run in the morning time. I love it for
There we
my
go.
pre-exercise, my time. These mushrooms do so much more than just support respiratory health.
Right.
In fact, when we look at structure function processes in the body, these three mushrooms particularly check off many of the boxes. One of the things that we know that they do, in fact, we host a webinar for our store staff and medical professionals that's all on athletic performance and post-exercise recovery using mushrooms and herbs. And reishi, chaga, and cordyceps all have a capacity to support post-exercise recovery processes because of their supportive antioxidant profiles. Both reishi and cordyceps have been found in research to support the production of ATP. That's the energy molecule that our mitochondria are helping to produce within our cells. So there's a lot of aspects where you can use these mushrooms for benefit. For one benefit, you're getting all of these additional support processes occurring simultaneously because of again, this vast array of compounds that these organisms have a capacity to produce over their life.
Well said, Richard. So, and then what would you say is a good take home on immune system? How are mushrooms in general, maybe like 2 or 3 ways that they're helping the immune system? We're not going to go into deep with like the different pathways and all that, but as a good take home so people can help understand mushrooms a bit better here to wrap up in this last 2 minutes, how are they in general overall helping in 3 ways to help the immune system function better?
Thank you very much. Yeah, and so all beneficial mushrooms that have been studied so far have been found to, in some way, to support the immune system. In published research that we have done on our mushroom mycelium and fermented rice substrate using human tissue cultures, we see very robust and moderate activations of all of the different stages of the immune response: immune cell engagement, the recruitment processes where the immune cells are starting to communicate with one another, as well as the clearance and pacification sides of the immune system, which is really important as well. And so, there's a glut of research out there that you can find that shows the support of mushroom species supporting the immune system. And that is exactly what we're seeing in human cell line studies, as well as in some of the human clinical studies that we have been involved with our mushroom mycelium specifically, like the one that I alluded to at the beginning of the talk here.
Richard, thank you for your time, for coming on episode number 126. Appreciate you hopping on short notice, by the way, and the whole team there, Amanda, and the whole staff there at Host Defense. Thanks for coming on, Richard.
We're always happy to support you, Doctor. Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk with you again.